Opinions expressed on Carter's Corner are entirely independent of the opinions of Radio 89.7 FM's Wise Board, talented management and wonderful sponsors. Carter's Corner respects the right of each individual to hold and express an opinion unfettered by the shackles of political correctness and without fear of quivering in the quicksand of cancel culture. Radio is for entertainment, not censorship.
We're just waiting for Aaron to do his thing, and then he's going to be back in the studio. So the reason we have these lovely, lovely ladies and gentlemen in the show with us today, our glorious leader, Mark McGowan, has decided to listen to someone who's declined to come onto our show, Dr. Andrew Miller from the Australian Medical Association, and decided, you know what? If we can't make people vaccinate, we'll make their kids vaccinate, so we'll get everyone on that way. So I'll be honest, I'm not too happy about it. But you know what? Ladies first, I reckon we should start with Dr. Judy Wilyman. Tell us, why is this such a bad thing?
Well, I mean, basically to start with, we know now globally that the risk of this virus is no greater than a normal influenza year. And so you'd have to really ask, why is there such an urgency to get onto the market a vaccine that is not yet proven to be safe or effective? And this is actual fact, and there's scientists and doctors all over the world are making this statement and putting forward claims to stop the vaccine from being approved so rapidly because it still has not been proven to be safe or effective.
Now, you're a doctor, okay? So, you're putting forward a valid argument that people should be listening to. You're not just, me who makes up, whatever needs to be said. You've actually got the medical training. So I think that's important for people to listen to and actually take on board. And one thing I have discovered through this process, it seems like a lot of doctors, nurses, people in the health industries are being shut down. I think that's a big part of it.
I'd have to clarify there because I'm not a medical doctor.
Okay.
I'm a PhD doctor in a public health issue, the history of the control of infectious diseases.
Right.
And the reasons for the government's vaccination program. That's my area of expertise.
Right.
So you're absolutely correct. People should be listening to what I have to say, and also the thousands of doctors and lawyers and scientists around the world are being suppressed, and the media is suppressing the science that is showing that this virus is no more serious than a normal influenza virus. We've got lawyers now and legal action started, and also that the vaccine has not been proven safe or effective, and this PCR test has been proven in Portugal to be useless, and it was known in advance that it was not a diagnostic tool for any disease. It cannot diagnose disease.
Right.
And this is a key factor.
Before we get into that one, you did say something right there. The media is lying to a lot of people, which is, I don't know if this has been an intentional thing, but it's all like an accidental thing for the station here. We're always trying to pull up the truth in media, and the media is notorious for only presenting little snippets of the truth to try and push their agenda. So we do actually have an article in the camp. Can you confirm for me? Is that the West Australian? Excuse me?
West Australian, yeah.
The West Australian, the headline on it, "Vaccinate or Schools Out." And there's some very, very damning quotes from Dr. Andrew Miller. Now, the thing you got to remember with the Australian Medical Association, they're not the governing body for a lot of the GPs. So we've actually had I got to remember his name. It was Dr. Stephen. He called into the show a couple of weeks ago.
Remember,
I can't remember what his last name was. So they have way more members on this, and yet they keep going to a third-rate doctor who, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, by the way, this isn't anyone else's, I think he's a bit of a charlatan, to be honest with you.
The Australian Medical Association is an industry lobby group for the medical profession.
And I love that word, lobby group, those two words, because let's face it, that seems to be, I'm starting to think that COVID or coronavirus or the flu or whatever you want to call it, the China virus, whatever you want to call it seems to be far more of a political issue than ever is a health issue.
It's very much a political issue. And could I just say that the AMA last year, they only represented 27% of doctors. As you say, there's other lobby groups for doctors who are definitely against mandatory vaccines as opposed to mandatory schooling, and they're not being listened to. These doctors are being silenced, suppressed, and it's actually a problem with the regulatory board. The Australian Health Practitioners Regulatory Board is controlling the knowledge that doctors are allowed to put out, which of course is a breach of the Hippocratic Oath.
Okay, so the one person in the office, in the studio here that we haven't actually heard from yet, Mr. Cam Tinley, the founder, would I call you the owner of the No Mandatory Vaccination Party? From, obviously you're a single issue party, that you've decided to tackle this mandatory vaccination side of things. How does this sit with you? Instead of forcing everyone else to vaccinate, they're going, you know what, we'll just target your children instead.
Yeah. Sorry. On Saturday, I got up very early to buy this copy of The West because I was anticipating an article to be about me, because I was interviewed by Peter Law, who rang me up on Friday. For quite a long time. I spoke to him about the party. So I assumed that there was going to be an article about the No Mandatory Vaccination Party in Saturday's paper. So I got down there as soon as it arrived at 6 a.m. and flicked through, and I was surprised that there was nothing about me in there. And then I went through the paper, and page 4, looked at the headline, "Vaccinate or Schools Out," and read it, and couldn't believe my eyes.
Yep. So how, as the single issue party for no mandatory vaccination, how does this, as a party as a whole, how does this make you guys feel how important your job is now that they're actually going out? And this is actually coming from the Premier, not the AMA guy. They're going out of their way to target our children as guinea pigs rather than trying to do it the proper way.
That's right.
Well, why don't we just, send them down the coal mines? I mean, hey, we're out of canaries. We'll send down the kids. This is ridiculous. It is just another overreach from one government. But, that's just my opinion.
So, Cam, what's the party's stance?
The situation, as far as mainly we're looking at membership at this stage, because we're obviously running in the next state election, but we use as a barometer the number of members that come in. We use that as a barometer of how the situation is. It's a little bit difficult to work out because we've been banned from advertising. Our Facebook page has been shadow banned and we can't advertise it. But when this appeared in the paper, we're already over 1,000 members, but they just started piling in all day on Saturday, and it was our biggest membership day we've ever had, and we had 300 people join over the weekend, and it was 150 in a couple of hours. It was about one every couple of minutes.
Wow.
All morning, because people are just horrified. And the comments on our webpage, on our Facebook page, were all about parents who weren't even anti-vax. They were pro-vax until this came out. And they all said, well, we're pulling our kids out. My kids just won't be going to school.
To be honest with you, I'll homeschool my kids, no worries. Especially with the vaccine that this experimental, and there was another one that they rushed through for morning sickness. I can't remember what the actual vaccine was.
Flutamide.
That's the one. And the amount of damage that caused is insane. Like, how can they even contemplate that this is a good thing? Like, it just blows my mind.
Yes, my first wife, she actually, her mum had taken flutamide, so I actually have some experience, and she had some inner ear deformities and so forth from that. She was very lucky because I've in my life, and I won't go on, but I've actually met some amazing people who have unfortunately survived through that. One gentleman who was actually born without arms and without legs and without a neck. Fantastic fella, but wow, what a lifestyle.
There was a disgraceful period in the 60s where the FDA approved that drug, and it caused many, many deformities in babies. I'd like to make the point here with this vaccine, in that, the fact is that vaccines didn't control infectious diseases, and that's a fact that people are not being informed about. There's been a lot of indoctrination in the school system over the last 3 decades, and vaccines were never used to control these diseases. It was environmental factors and nutrition, because a virus on its own actually doesn't cause disease. It's it's called the epidemiological triangle, and it's these other factors that determine how serious the expression of disease is any individual.
Right.
And so this is a key factor to know with the safety of bringing a vaccine on the market. We need to use the precautionary principle, which puts the onus of proof of harmlessness on the pharmaceutical companies and the government. Now, they've reversed that.
I saw that.
And they're putting the onus of proof on the public and whizzing this through on the false claim that we need this vaccine to control the disease. But as I've already said, this virus is no more serious a risk than any other flu virus, and that is globally. That is the statistics the lawyers are presenting globally.
So what I need to do right now, because we were actually originally planning to have another young gentleman calling in on the show today. Right. He's now available. Even in my opinion, even Canberra is trying to deplatform this young gentleman. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to a quick message and a song. And when we come back, we'll have the special guest for the show calling in all the way from Canberra. He's just stood out of Parliament House to give us a call. Fantastic. So we'll be back very, very shortly after a few messages.
My corona.
He's on the drums there. Nice work there, Mr. Carter.
Talking of Mr. Carter, this is Carter's Corner with Travis Carter, Dr. Judy Wilyman. I'm terrible with names. I do apologise. We got Cam Tinley and Aaron
over
from
here.
Friday Fast Lanes and Manic Monday with the shirt so loud no one can hear what he says.
That's my look, okay? It's just who I am. Leave me alone.
Leave you alone.
Okay? I've got feelings. I can fake them. Yeah.
You can fake them. Wow. Wow. Talking of faking feelings, not really, but it's just I was looking for a way to segue into that terrible, terrible article from the West Australian.
No, the West Australian. Stop picking on the West Australian. I'll tell you what, that is very good kitty litter. It's fantastic. If you line the tray, it's quite absorbent.
Really?
That's how bad that newspaper is.
Yes,
it is a joke. It is an absolute joke. It is just a Stokes ego-stroking Channel 7 far-left lunatic bunch of indoctrinators.
Yeah, if I could make a comment about that article, I mean, they're so far ahead of themselves. I mean, this is a disease that's a mutated coronavirus that's only been around for maximum 9 months, and yet they started to make a vaccine for it in February. Bill Gates had started funding the vaccine in February, and the patents for this vaccine were actually given in 2015, plus those PCR kits that we obtained were actually sold in 2017. So for a new coronavirus that we didn't actually know about, now this is information that's all in the legal action that is being taken against the government.
Well, it's important to prepare for something that's a complete surprise, right?
Well, exactly. And have you seen that little meme of the two rats? And one rat says, "Oh, are you going to take the COVID-19 vaccine?" And the other rat says, "Oh, no, they haven't finished the human trials yet." And that's exactly the point.
That is spot on.
Talking of human trials, what are they doing to our kids?
And the vaccine has new technology in it that needs long-term, monitoring to see how it will affect humans and all our body systems. And if I could just mention, on 1st of December, we had the ex-Pfizer head of the Respiratory Research Unit, Dr Michael Yeadon, and the lung specialist and former head of the Public Health Department, Dr Wolfgang Wardog. They filed an application with the European Medicine Agency that's responsible for approving drugs for the immediate suspension of the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine studies, in particular because of significant safety concerns that were expressed by an increasing number of renowned scientists against the vaccine and the study design. So I'll just read here because it sums up completely, because you see that it says here they know that the PCR test is inaccurate and it's got so many false positives, even if it was able to be used as a diagnostic tool for disease, but it can't be. So it's being misused anyway, and so it says they demand that due to the known lack of accuracy of the PCR test in a serious study, a so-called Sanger sequencing must be used. This is why the only way to make reliable statements on the effectiveness of a vaccine against COVID-19 on the basis of the many different PCR tests of different varying quality, neither the risk of the disease, as I've said before, it's not urgent for a vaccine, nor a possible vaccine benefit can be determined with the necessary certainty, which is why testing the vaccine on humans is unethical per se.
Right.
These are your top scientists.
Like how? It blows me away that is it getting so far. The left is getting so much control, you know, like the animal cruelty side of things. Like, oh no, we can't test the vaccine on animals anymore, so we'll test it on humans. Is it getting to that point that we're totally losing control?
You know, we've got this, you know, Antifa and vegan terrorists and so forth. And no, if you're a vegan, you're not a terrorist. No. I'm talking about a particular type of person, you know, who is, quite frankly, we used to call them mentally ill. Okay, now we seem to have other titles for them.
Actually,
you know?
That's not actually the reason why they don't use the animal studies.
Oh, okay.
Because all drugs are required to be tested in animals first, but not a vaccine, because they reclassified that as a biologic. So despite the fact that it is definitely a drug that you inject into the body and that has lots of chemicals that the public's not even informed about and foreign DNA, it's because it's called a biologic, it is being tested for safety in a different way. They do not. Most of the vaccines have not been tested for safety on animals.
Go on.
So it's I was reading. We had Topher Field on the show, and we were talking about the removal of the legal liability to the companies making these vaccines.
Yep.
Indemnity. That's what I was looking for. And I wonder if that's how they get around the indemnity side of things by claiming that it's not a drug, it is a vitamin or whatever they want to call it.
No, that wasn't the reason they gave indemnity to the manufacturers. Through the 80s, they were getting so many vaccine injury claims that they said it was making them broke and therefore they wouldn't be able to make vaccines for the world if they didn't get liability, indemnity for any harm caused by a vaccine. So it was Ronald Reagan.
I was about to say,
Exactly, because the vaccines didn't control the diseases. So any benefit they have is secondary to the fact that these were controlled by environmental factors by 1950.
I think Big Pharma has far more control of our lives than it needs to, full stop. There's such a need, there's such a push to push every drug, every chemical into a person's body. I mean, I sit here and I ain't no natural athlete, I can tell you. But, you know, if
You'd make a great sumo wrestler.
I really would. I've got the right style, mate. The body for it, right? Body of a god, Buddha being a god. But the thing is, okay, that you go to the doctor and it's not, you know what, Aaron, you need to get some healthy, you know, a bit of lifestyle, eat a bit better, get a lot more exercise. No, it's, hey, take a pill, take another pill, take another one, you know. That seems to be the way.
Because health was privatised and it's the, capitalist economic model of health that we've adopted, which means that the pharmaceutical companies are influential in the marketing and pushing of drugs onto doctors and educating them on the drugs.
Okay.
So this is part of the problem. Money's power.
One thing I want to do is, I don't know. I keep bringing back to the Western Australian newspaper article.
I get why.
I'm sorry. It's made bile rise up into my throat how disgusted I am in this. And the bit that really concerns me. So for those people who are long-time listeners to the show, they probably know that I have a walking stick. I had a motorbike accident in 2015. I'm considered incapacitated for Centrelink. Now, if I decide not to take this vaccine, they're pushing that I can't get any help to feed my family.
Yes.
So isn't that holding people for ransom that actually genuinely need help?
Exactly what it is. Exactly that. You're holding someone to ransom. It's this, you know, no jab, no play, carry on or whatever. Look, again, I'm not anti-vax. You know, I'm not. Okay, I'm pro-choice, and not in that way. I'm pro-choice in the way of people need to make decisions about their own bodies and their children's bodies. Right? It is not government's decision to step in. Quite frankly, we won't go down that alley too far. But the reality is, right now, government have complete control of our children. Okay, they can choose what parent, you know, is in their person's life. They can choose where they go to school, what drugs, whatever they put into their body. We are individuals. We are not owned. This is not 1984.
And it's a breach of the fundamental ethic of medical practice, which is all individuals, because of our genetic diversity, medications must be given specifically with the circumstances of that person's, data in mind. It's not, you cannot give a drug to a genetically diverse population, and governments actually don't have the jurisdiction to medicate the population. So what has happened here is that they've reversed the actual principles of medicine to claim that vaccines are so necessary that we need to have them for all these diseases. But us that are older, in the older generation, we haven't had half the vaccines that we're now forcing our children to have.
As a child, I was a little pain in the ass, quite frankly, right? So if I was a child now, Mum would be, take me down to the doctor and they go, oh my God, he's ADHD and we've got to give him this and we've got to give him that and we're going to slow him down because Aaron wants to jump bikes off houses. Well, you know what? I like jumping bikes off houses. Call me old-fashioned.
It's a really stupid thing I did as a kid. I got Mum's bed sheets off the bed. We had a 2-story house. It was like a really terrible house. And so I pretended it was a parachute and jumped off the balcony with Mum's bed sheets.
That's right.
And needless to say, it did not work.
And you know what? You fall over, go rub some dirt in it. Yeah. We're absolutely sanitising the hell out of ourselves. I'm a very clean person, but at the same time, I don't want to, brush my teeth with hand sanitizer. And we're getting
Don't get it in your eye. It really hurts.
Oh. It's just... Again, our civil liberties and the fact that we are being dulled down. They keep using the word diversity, right? And they're trying to destroy diversity by making us all the same.
Diversity. We've had a message come through. I've just been waiting for you to stop. God, Aaron, motor mouth. No, so the comments come through. You can choose to be gay. You can choose to be straight. You can even have the freedoms to choose your own gender. And now, thanks to the Labor government and everything, you can even now choose to kill your parents with the assisted dying bill. But yet we can't choose to vaccinate our children from a disease that may or may not. And from what the studies show, very, very extremely rare cases, does it actually hurt them?
Well, I can say from a personal point of view is if you do speak up, and this would be something Judy's experiencing a lot, if you speak up against this with common sense arguments and so forth, you tend to get cancelled.
Not just common sense arguments, academic arguments and research. It's bullying and denigrating of the messenger is how they're controlling this issue. Academics are being suppressed when it comes to scientific issues with big vested interest in them. This is how they're silencing.
Absolutely.
Integrity's gone from the medical profession because they're being educated with pharmaceutical studies that are promoting vaccines, and the history of the control of infectious diseases is not presented to doctors.
All right, so I do want to jump in here. Cam,
Yep.
you're probably, let's be honest here, political-wise, you're probably the most experienced person in this room. I've run one campaign. You've run a couple, of my understanding. Aaron, I think he got arrested from running one, but we'll leave that one alone. We're constantly talking about the problems here. What I want to see is, as no mandatory vaccination party, first of all, are you anti-vax?
Our party, I'll just speak as a party thing, rather than give personal opinions. Our policy, no mandatory vaccination, is specific to the COVID-19 vaccination and opposing Section 158 of the Public Health Act of Western Australia.
So for the people who are listening out in the world of radio, and Aaron's shaking his head again because he hates that term. So the Section 158 means that the state government during an emergency can force any medical treatment upon a person. They can even remove the underwear of children. I can't remember if that's 158.
For everybody.
So it doesn't matter. So if the medical treatments, it's terrible. It's really, really bad. So they can force any treatment onto a person. So I've heard a lot of people saying that your party is an anti-vaxxer party, whether you just want to outlaw all vaccines. So let's set the record straight.
No, we're specifically concentrating on this vaccination. We're concentrating on this vaccination because we don't think we can lose that argument. On Section 158, the legislation says that not only can a vaccination be forced on you, but if you refuse to remove your clothing, you can have a $20,000 fine. So they want to destroy you financially, then they want to destroy you psychologically, then they want to destroy you physically until you've got nothing. And that's what it's all about. There's no bigger issue than this mandatory vaccination. So we're concentrating on that. The reason we're concentrating on that is because the media will try to take us away from that issue and try to talk about vaccinations, and they've already tried to do that. But we are concentrating on this because it's impossible to lose an argument. It's impossible for somebody to say, I think the police should be able to forcibly remove your clothing and give you a vaccination. Nobody can argue that.
Let's take it even further, because if you read right into the Health Act, it's not just the police officers, it's not medical staff. It says authorised person, which means it can be anyone that I think it's the health minister or the chief health officer assigns as an authorised person. So if that person just happens to be charged with pedophilia and a whole heap of other things, he's allowed.
Now, just a little strange little side note on this. I actually just got a 30-day ban on Facebook. Okay,
welcome to jail.
On a particular, I'm in Facebook jail, right, for a particular image that I put up there, which was a police officer, and it had. Effectively, it was done in black and white on the side, an inference of an SS worker, okay? Now, of the fact that the current police, with what's going on with all of this, forcing these things upon us and so forth, it's got that similarity to, Nazi Germany, right? Okay? Now, I was given a 30-day ban for that. My freedom of speech was taken away from me on that issue. Big tech is having a lot to do with saying what we can say and what we can't. And, the issues...
Strongly censored.
Absolutely
Big
strongly
tech
censored.
is no longer a platform. They are
they are a publisher.
They're a publisher, and they should have the same. And this is one of the things that I've always wanted to really, really, really push on this one. I think places like Facebook, Twitter, social media, and everything like that needs to be added to the code of conduct for media, radio, and newspaper. It should be the 4 prints of media now.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just point out how deceptive this issue actually is, because the government has been claiming for years, right up until 2020, that vaccines in Australia are not compulsory. And then lo and behold, we discover that in 2016, they put through this legislation without public consultation or publicity that mandatory you can be forced to be vaccinated and stripped and naked and all the rest of it.
Yeah, because quite frankly, there was a big scene about having hairy armpits, and that's they were the ones, the vote that they wanted to get. There became that part of society that was rejecting these things, and these government or these politicians thought, hey, this is another place we can find votes. That's what it's about. It's about votes. It's about money, and people's choice and their liberties. Who cares?
So throwing it to Cam, how can we fix this?
Well, there's a few things. Before I say how we can fix this, I'll just go back to this legislation.
Yep.
Because people are assuming if the police come to your door and give the vaccination or hold you down, that it's Australian police. There's no guarantee that it will be Australian police. It will probably be military, and there's no guarantee it will be Australian military. It could be any military. And there's also an assumption that the person giving the vaccination will have papers to say they're authorised to do it. They don't have to have papers either.
No.
So they can turn up with absolutely nothing. But I didn't realise until just recently, when just reading through the legislation, what it says at the front. And I've just got the paper here. It says Local Government Implementation of the Public Health Act of 2016.
Oh,
so the thing, and I'd never noticed that until just a couple of days ago, the reason that's important is because local government has absolutely no capacity to be able to give vaccinations. And so if they're given the task of giving out the vaccinations, they'll have no choice but to go to have somebody help them. And if some foreign military says, well, we'll help, the local government will just say, sure.
Well, the local government, they don't need that responsibility apart from anything else.
Local governments, roads, recreation and rubbish. That's what they deal with. Stay to it. You know what, talking local government, why don't we really should get Basil in here to talk about local government.
And that's right. And how are we going to do something about it? And Basil will be in charge of this. And just ask him, did you know you're in charge of vaccinations in the city of Perth?
But we've also seen that in UK and Europe, they are using the army and rolling out the army to assist with the vaccinations. It's all stated there.
I've got a theory. I've noticed how everything seems to be grouping together, like the cash ban with the bail-in laws and everything else. They're tying all these things together to achieve another agenda. I don't know if you guys are aware, there was just a bill or something passed to give foreign military soldiers indemnity of any war crimes. I don't know if they're exempt from war crimes, but if they break someone's door down, something, they don't have to pay for the repairs and all that sort of stuff.
Or if they hurt a civilian, then...
Correct. So I wonder if that's in links to this. So they
the WA police have been doing that for years.
But now it's foreign forces. Now they're allowing foreign forces to have indemnity for any harm they cause to an Australian citizen.
Really good Midnight Oil song, that one, Foreign Forces, is it?
It is. US forces.
US forces.
Can I just get back to the mandatory part
Can
of
I
this?
be a bit of a pain?
We need to get some messages.
We do. I really want to hear this, but we've got to do our thing. So... Mr. Carter,
I think it's time for me to press the start button.
please do.
And we'll go some messages on Carter's Corner with Travis Carter, Aaron Molloy, Dr. Judy Wilyman. I think I got it right this time. And Cam Tinley. So we'll be back shortly. Carter's Corner back again. Well, we're not back. We're still here.
Haven't
You're still
moved.
in. Huh?
Haven't moved, my friend.
Well, I moved a little bit. I think I wiggled my chair across about 30 seconds.
Wiggle it
maybe.
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Anyway, Carter's Corner, Travis Carter, Aaron Molloy, and Dr. Judy Wilyman. I think I'm getting it. I'm finally
You're
getting
not,
it.
but you're giving it a crack, and I appreciate that.
I'm
Judy
ter-
does.
I'm terrible
I just
with
like
names.
Dr. Judy. I think we just call her Dr. Judy because it's a cool
That's
name.
fine with me.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. And we do have Cam here, but he's had to take a phone call
He
because I have not seen a gentleman's phone ring as much as his has. So, guys, if you do want to make a difference, make sure you jump onto these parties pages and the Facebook groups and all that sort of stuff, because having members on these things really gives them a bit of the oomph that they need to really make these changes possible. So,
Look, we heard earlier today with Malcolm Roberts, the fact is the smaller parties are making change. They are the balance of power in these situations. So I am all for voting for smaller parties. Obviously, make your own mind up. It's your mind, your decision. But my personal thought is this is if you want to actually change things, that's the way to do it.
That's right, and one of the parties doing that is the Health Australia Party.
Right,
They're definitely against coercive or mandatory vaccinations, and that goes for the whole lot. Because it is a breach of the Nuremberg Code. Fully informed consent to medication was put in place after what we saw with the experiments on the German people, and they brought in the Nuremberg Code. Well, this new vaccine, after 9 months, is clearly an experimental vaccine. It's got new technology in it. You need 10 years of data. The government's been telling that for us for years, that you need 10 years of safety data before you put it on the market. So before I mentioned the ex-Pfizer head coming out and saying this must be stopped immediately, well, here I've got the Swiss regulator, and they're saying that Switzerland says it lacks the necessary information to sign off on the 3 coronaviruses that are in production. It said important data on safety, efficacy and quality are still missing. It has reached out to the manufacturers who provided the data, to say that these trials must be stopped and the vaccines need to be trialled for much longer before they get on the market. Now, I also have, the side effects of these vaccines.
Right.
They've mentioned that we've literally, the package inserts for all vaccines have had adverse events, serious adverse events. There's 158. And these include encephalopathy, Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is your paralysis and very common after flu vaccines.
Right.
You've got seizures, convulsions, autoimmune diseases, and of course, these adverse events, they don't come out immediately after the vaccine's been given. Sometimes it's months and even years with autoimmune diseases. And that's what's happening here. This vaccine, if you put it on after 9 months, you don't know any of the frequency of the which adverse events are going to be prevalent and in what frequency in a genetically diverse population.
now,
go on,
just
mate.
before we jump in there, I've had a few messages come through. There is one person who wants to actually talk about the actual test itself. So I think she wants to come through on the phone line. So by all means, the telephone line, if you're listening there out there, for the studio is 0862 44 3322. I'll do my best to answer and not to screw it up and accidentally hang up on you. So if I do hang up on you, call back again, because we're still kind of fresh with this technology in the office, in the studio, which is cool. But the other one that's coming through is so with all these symptoms, problems, and all that sort of stuff, how is it possible that we're allowed to do that to school children? Like
To experiment on the population.
Yeah. So Dr. Judy, how is that happening?
Because the government has ignored the public voice, and they've put in place political barriers that have prevented academics and researchers from having a voice with the government. That's what I've experienced.
Years ago, when people would say things like that, I would think, oh, yeah, you're whatever, conspiracy theorist, bit of a loony, okay, maybe put some tinfoil on the head, whatever the case may be, right? Now, with what I've experienced over the last few years, oh my word, that is exactly what takes place. We have government who step in and completely control the narrative and shut the voices that want to make the
They've
changes.
suppressed the debate.
They certainly have.
And I've put from
We have a
personal
phone call.
experience.
We do.
All right, so guys, let's see. Welcome to 89.7. This is Travis and this is Carter's Corner.
Hi.
Hi, we got Vicky. It worked. I'm a legend. I'm so good.
Yeah, good on ya.
Welcome to the show. Now, this is Vicky, isn't it?
Yes, Vicky.
Wow, Vicky, thank you for calling through to the show. You're with Travis Carter. We've got Aaron Malloy, Cam Tinley, and Dr. Judy. So, what's your question, Vicky?
Hi, everyone.
Hiya, how you going?
Hi.
This line's very quiet.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. We can hear you very well.
Beautifully.
So, fire away, Vicky.
Okay, so I just wanted to talk about lawyer Serene Tehesa
Yep.
over in Melbourne, who is about to lodge the class action before Christmas.
Right.
Now, I don't know if anyone remembers, about 3 months ago, Serene did a video, one of her many, so it would be quite difficult for me to find quickly. She actually did a video and she'd actually discovered that the PCR tests, which as we know, they came from China, they're being sent back to China for DNA profiling, the data from them.
What?
Hang on.
That's
So,
correct.
Yeah.
There's a clause in the
Am I?
You've got to be kidding
that
me.
enables the Chinese to collect the DNA as well as the Australian government. So
Hang
yes.
on. Is this the
That's
Chinese
exactly
government
right.
or private companies in China?
This was the PCR test that Andrew Forrest bought from China. The
I'm not
10 million,
surprised.
and
So,
they were used
Mr. China
only in
himself.
Victoria.
Right. So is this
Yeah.
going? So our DNA is effectively being put back, and I'm asking this question: is it going back to the hands of the CCP?
That's correct.
Wow.
There's a
That's
clause.
correct. And
Wow.
Wow.
There
Yeah,
is
it's,
no way in hell I'm going to take one of these tests. They can go cram it up there.
There's no way
Sorry.
I'm going to. And I felt that for a while. And as I say, I'm not anti-vax. Quite frankly, I think if they make people's lives better, it's a great thing. But this is a joke. This is selling your profile, your genetic profile. I mean, this is insane.
Well, it shows there's another agenda because the 5G technology that's being put in place assists with facial recognition. And of course, if both governments, Australia
DNA.
and the Chinese, are collecting DNA,
Yep.
then they're
Yep.
fine-tuning their systems for, population control with,
Yep.
with
This
facial.
is sick. This is disgusting.
It is sick. Yeah, before you said about the Nuremberg trials and what came from the experiments and so forth. People you'd have these conversations in the past about what happened in Germany in the 30s, right? And you think to yourself, how in the world did that happen? Why did the Germans turn a blind eye? How could that disgusting thing go on, right? And then you live from the last sort of 4 years of the world, quite frankly, and you see with all technology and all the information we've got access to both spread lies and control and all kind of carry on, you actually see it like now I understand. Now I understand.
And some of the barriers that I was talking about, the political barriers, include the corporate-sponsored media. So the mainstream media now, because of the corporate sponsorship, they rely on that money. And in fact, with global health policy, it's controlled by Bill Gates, and the web of financial, inducements in the mainstream media is complete. It's a huge web.
From my position,
And that's how the narrative is being controlled, and we're being suppressed. All the scientists, I've put links on my website of the scientists globally. There's the Great Barrington Declaration.
Right.
There's legal action happening via the World Freedom Alliance.
I
and
will
the
say
German
I will
lawyers.
say this, and I'll say this rather carefully.
You better not say it then.
Yes, I am witness to narratives being controlled financially through media outlets.
Yes.
Well, the simple truth is, and we can't get away from it, and this just proves that you can only find the truth on community radio.
Well, this is it, because my academic research for 5 years, it's been banned from being presented in council venues.
Right.
And when we have attempted to present it at times, we've been targeted by the lobby groups, industry lobby groups, and then we've had to keep the venue secret when I present my academic research to the
Now-
public.
How do you have to keep academic facts secret? This is crazy. It's not like secret little Mickey Mouse Club.
Wasn't the German government in the 1940s burning books for what they didn't like?
Well, 30s, mate. Actually, they
30s,
started.
was
They
it?
started in 32, I believe. Started burning the
Yeah,
books.
that's correct.
There's a few words in there that we probably shouldn't say on live radio because that we'll hear the screams from here.
Oh,
Yeah. Anyway.
yes.
And just in addition to that, because
Yeah.
obviously I'm following England very closely, because apart from my immediate family, the rest of my family are all over there. So I just discovered today, which obviously wasn't on MSM, there was a cyber attack on the delivery company Well, it was
Wow.
the delivery company, basically had orchestrated a cyber attack.
Okay.
They were posing as the delivery company. So, and I don't know why, but apparently all these vaccinations that were delivered around England in the last day or so, there was a cyber attack pointed at them to have the temperature, because they have to be below 70 to 80 degrees.
Vicky, clearly that's just a coincidence.
so-
I mean, come on, don't be silly.
Note
Yeah,
the
there was an
sarcasm.
attack to actually raise the temperatures on the vaccines to ruin them all.
Oh, very good.
And that came from China too.
Wow.
And the companies that are delivering them to all the hospitals in the UK are a Chinese courier company.
Now, here's the problem. You say what you've just said, and everyone freaks out and goes, "Oh, look at you, racist, racist. You've said Chinese, 3 times in a sentence. You must be a terrible human being," which is far from the truth. The fact of the matter is, this is not against the Chinese people, who are, just wonderful people, full stop. Most of them are that I've ever experienced. But the reality, this is about government. This is about the Chinese Communist Party. Notice that C in the middle there, communist. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in the 80s, we spent a bit of time trying to get rid of communists. Just notice
but
why
most
we're
of
in
the
bed
people
with
that-
them now.
Most of the people that are pushing the communist agenda weren't even born in the 80s.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But
So
we're in bed.
They're
with,
trying again with like the fresh meat.
Yep. Yeah.
So
good point.
now I
Good
just
point.
have to. We've got a few messages coming through here. So according to the Science magazine, the Journal for American Association for the Advancements of Science, at least 5 of the potential COVID-19 vaccines being deployed use cell lines from one of 2 aborted babies. One of them abortion was in the early 1970s. The other was in 1985. Science reported in June. So apparently that was actually in a magazine. So, how can you use dead babies
Well,
in
human
anything?
fetal cells are used in the MMR vaccine, the culturing
Yeah.
of the virus for the MMR vaccine. So this is something that we've known about for a long time. And yes,
Right.
these vaccines, the COVID ones, will be using.
So these scientists understand a thing called ethics, do they? Okay, because I understand it's good and it's important to look after the general pop and all that kind of thing. Okay, we need to look after people, but these are babies. We're talking about dead babies. There is nothing more fundamentally important than preservation of a child's life.
Yeah.
This is disgusting.
So I've got we actually don't. I've got 3 kids. I donated the umbilical cords for all 3 of them. That's not a dead baby. That's
a different
leftovers.
thing. Yeah,
Like,
okay.
as bad as it sounds, it's
No,
still
I
leftovers.
get that.
But using an actual dead baby, like, what sort of messed up person has to think of this?
But on top of this, it's foreign DNA that is in the vaccine, because contamination from the manufacturing process goes into the vaccine.
Right.
So you've got this foreign DNA, and if it's human DNA, these human fetal cells, then our bodies create auto-antibodies, which is what causes autoimmune diseases. So
Right.
things like multiple sclerosis,
Yeah.
lupus, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis,
Okay.
all of these autoimmune diseases are listed on the package inserts for vaccines, and we know that the mechanism is likely to be some of the foreign DNA from the even the chick embryos and the calf bovine material tissues that these viruses are cultured on. So, those things are in there and the public doesn't know about them.
Well, look, but this is okay.
Sorry, just quickly, we have had a text message come through on the text line 0418 897 897. Can you ask, I think it's meant to be your viewers on today's announcement, that 3 ex-US presidents, George W. Bush, Clinton and Obama, have come out stating they agree to have the vaccine on TV. Will that be a stage with vitamin B or saline solution, or a COVID-19 vaccine for real? I'm going to add another one in there. Are they going to pull a, what was the Queensland Premier's name again? Palaszczuk. And just leave the lid on? And so it's just like, oh, wow, that didn't even hurt. So I don't know.
Plastic
She's a
normally
bit of a
doesn't
muppet.
hurt, but there you go.
But I'd like the people that are pushing these agendas. They use the same playbook over and over, and made a speech on Sunday with Elvis Presley. In 1956, Elvis Presley was invited onto the Ed Sullivan Show, the biggest show in America. Tens of millions of people watching, and he was supposed to sing Hound Dog. He got on, came on, left his band behind, came on with doctors and nurses, and in front of everybody, his studio audience, and he got a polio vaccination. And so it was just a complete
Is that right?
But this
Yeah.
is what we're seeing even with comedians in Australia. They know their reputations are enhanced
Yep.
if they tell an
Of
anti-vax
course.
joke. Where the
Yep.
people that question the safety of vaccines are the butt of the
Well,
comedian's
comedy's
jokes.
almost dead because of political correctness. Comedians have got the toughest gig in the world right now because
Come
you
on.
can't make a joke.
Isaac Butterfield, mate. He
I love
is
Isaac.
so unpolitically correct. I'd love to get him on the show. If you're listening, Isaac, come on, give us a few highly inappropriate jokes. We'd love to hear them.
You know
So
what?
yeah, there's a lot of indoctrination happening through those sorts of things. Celebrities being,
I've never heard the
encouraged to
Elvis
do
one
it.
before. Absolutely, I'm blown away by that.
It's an amazing situation because if you go on YouTube, you cannot see him. You can read articles about it, newspaper articles from the time that you spoke about it, but the video footage you just cannot find it. Or you can.
Good old YouTube and Google doing that one.
Well, the big story about that was to only have them filmed from the waist up. To me, that because they didn't want to, upset teenagers and give them bad ideas with him gyrating his hips. That's what I remember about that.
Isn't that Elvis? He does that
Elvis
anyway.
the Pelvis, man. Hello,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, my name's Aaron. I wonder, do I like Elvis, right? But Mum, that's where I got the name. The fact of the matter is, that's the story I remember. I remember the Ed Sullivan show. I remember the waist up reason. I have never, sitting here in all my 32 years, we'll call it. Sorry, I thought Travis would bite. Never mind.
Sorry, I was reading
it's
messages
all
as they come through.
I have never heard anything about the polio.
No, it's been
ever.
completely obliterated from the record, but it's there. Anybody can look it up.
Wow.
1956 Elvis Presley
I'm
polio
embarrassed.
injection.
I'm embarrassed not to know that.
Sorry to miss your potential joke there, Aaron.
Have
But
a
no,
crack, mate. Have a
it looks like we've actually got quite a few listeners
Lots.
because we are getting smashed by messages. So if you do want to get on the show, like we have Vicky on the line with us now, make sure you send us a message in and all that sort of stuff. We've got the office line. Even if we're not on air, we still read all these messages and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So the text line again is 0418 897 897. And you know what, Aaron? I think we're having a fantastic conversation, but we do need to listen to some other people called our sponsors. So I do need to quickly jump into a ad. Oh, wow, we're actually 18 minutes late, so that's awesome. So you're on Carter's Corner with Travis Carter, Aaron Malloy, Dr. Judy, and Cam from No Mandatory Vaccination Party. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Mr. Window, Carter's Corner. Did it stop?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, good. I hit the stop button, but I was like 15 seconds ago, so...
Nothing like preparation, my friend.
Oh, of course. So we've had a bit of a changing of the guards here on Carter's Corner with Travis Carter, Aaron Malloy, Dr. Judy, and Cam has had a haircut. He's now known as Tyler Walsh, North Metro candidate for everyone's favourite party, One Nation. Welcome to the studio, Tyler.
Thank you very much, Travis.
Congratulations, mate. That's
Thanks.
a great thing to do.
It's awesome. But, you all don't hate me for this comment, but don't care. It's funny.
Good.
So we're talking about the government, especially the Labor government, forcing vaccines on children. So we have the Child of Parliament. Tyler! No. So, Tyler, you get slammed with this question all the time. How old are you?
I'm 21 years old, but I'll be 22 Monday, not next week, but the week after.
So, first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
So, just to give people a bit of a rundown, Tyler was actually he's quite experienced in politics. He's actually got more experience than I have. He was actually the candidate for the federal election for the seat of Moore.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, for One Nation as well. So he's been around. He's also does a lot of the political stuff out the ECU, I think it was from memory.
It's UWA, so I've...
Yeah, UWA, sorry.
Yeah.
So Tyler, yes, he may be young, but God, he's smart.
And you know what? The stupid thing is, we tease him at his age because we're old and therefore we like to do that. It makes us feel better about ourselves.
More than a little bit jealous, he's still got a full head of hair too.
Just let that slide. Okay, fine. No, but honestly, I've met you a few years back now, I guess, and the fact of the matter is you are such an impressive person. You understand politics. And I think, quite frankly, I see your age as an advantage, not because, I think it gives you a different perspective, and I think that's something we should be encouraging, quite frankly, not just trashing people because they're younger. You've got the experience, you've got the know-how, and you've got a good set of shoulders there, mate. So, yeah, I think just big round of applause, quite frankly. Great work.
Okay, yeah, it is great to see more people of the younger generations getting into politics because you got to remember, in 20 years' time, these people will be our future leaders. So it is definitely important that people do have a say across all ages.
So what we're talking about right now is, and I understand you're the North Metro candidate, so we really, really, really want to know, we're talking about vaccines, forcing them on our children. One Nation. We haven't seen much in the mainstream media from them because obviously they're not the Labor or the Greens, so they're not getting a chance to put their stance forward. Update us. Tell us what's going on, Tyler.
So One Nation has always believed, or when it comes to this topic of vaccines, I guess the right to choose. We fully support parents' rights when it comes to their children being vaccinated. I mean, if you believe that vaccines are safe and they're effective, then by all means go and get vaccinated. But it does become a bit of an overreach when the government does that by force.
Yeah.
Particularly when there's so many that are being put on the schedule and they've got 200 more in the pipeline being developed.
This is frightening to think
It is
that.
frightening.
Absolutely.
So parents need to ask, well, how many are they prepared to put in their bodies? Because these are a drug and
Well,
they interact with each other.
To be
And-
frank, okay, I'm going to slide.
Hi, Frank.
I'm going to slide sideways on this. I think a lot of parents are scared, quite frankly. If you stand up to government, if you stand up to the schooling system or whatever, you've got groups like the Department of Communities and Families and so forth.
Did you
which
see that
is,
post the other week?
Oh, look,
my
they are
God,
they are the most anti-family organisation. They are just absolutely disgraceful theft of taxpayer money, but forgetting about the money, quite frankly, probably, a great promoter of child abuse, quite frankly, in Western Australia and across Australia. And, I think a lot of parents now are frightened, okay, that if they actually say no, then they might lose their kids. Because I can tell you right now, it's really easy to lose your kids in WA.
I've been an expert witness in the court cases, and I can promise you around Australia, parents have never been so anxious. It's and it's the disinformation that's being presented by medical practitioners on the risks of vaccines. Because as I mentioned before, it's the way their education is being controlled by the regulatory board, and they're not able to use the full body of medical literature that I've used in my research. And allied health professionals have also been excluded from this now because they're regulated as well. So this whole thing is very deceptive. But it's not for kids. Let me just say, it's not just for kids. They're coming for adults now. And that's why they raised the age of a child. When they brought in the no jab, no pay and no play in 2015, when they proved it, they also raised the age of a child from 7 to 21 so that they could include all adults on the immunisation register.
Oh, so just speaking on that point, people aged from 18 to 21 are considered children, is that?
No, that's interesting too, because they've now lowered the age that a child can make a decision on medication and health. They've lowered it to 14. Now that
I think that's
which
a lot
is
of
a tragedy.
It is a mass tragedy because it's a lot of so that way if a parent's let's say a child gets it into their head that, oh no, I'm born a boy, but I want to be a girl, and at 14 I want to change. It's
well,
no longer
with
medications,
medications, Travis, that is a tragedy because they do not have the knowledge to know the side effects of vaccines, and they're very susceptible now to pharmaceutical propaganda and marketing, and parents cannot step in. And so that change was made without parents knowing.
Strange little comment on that. I remember talking to my doctor about 5 years ago, and he had a funny little thing on the I don't know what you call it. Anyway, a little plaque kind of thing on his desk, right, from Pfizer. And he was saying about, and I said, are they giving you kickbacks? Ha, 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 ha. And he jokingly said, no, that would be unethical. But my God, my family and I really enjoyed our holiday to Disneyland. Yeah, right?
That's true.
And I questioned him on it, and yes, Pfizer had paid because of the amount of prescriptions he's written. Pfizer paid for him and his family for a $30,000 trip to the US to go to Disneyland.
And the alternative, if they do speak up and see the medical literature by researching for themselves like I have, they get denigrated, their reputation gets destroyed. Just look what's happened to me. And therefore, it's not worth their while, because if they continue to promote the misinformation they're educated with, they get lots of money and conferences and prestige.
Talking of, if you do dare to speak up, they'll destroy your livelihood. So we had that letter written over East where all the doctors were saying you need to open the borders because the amount of suicide it's causing is just way over things. Those guys have been absolutely slammed. But we've got a Perth case here as well, which I didn't know much about until a couple of weeks ago. Now, I'm going to butcher her name again. Is it Natalia?
I think it is, yes.
So she is a dentist. She was actually
from the
in
Ukraine.
quarantine.
Yeah.
Well, actually, she lives in Perth.
No, I know that. Yeah.
So she was a child bride in the Ukraine, came to Australia, got herself out, got herself educated. All she wanted to be was a dentist. So during COVID, she was in isolate. I don't know if it was isolation or quarantine for 2 weeks. Right. And she checked with her boss and said, am I allowed to treat these patients? This is what's been reported to me. He said yes. So she went in, treated the patients, came back home. She used all the protective equipment. No one got sick. I think she got tested and she was negative. So she caused no harm whatsoever. But instead of just giving her a fine, they've jailed her for... now, Dwayne, if that's my producer, by the way. Dwayne, if you can confirm how long Natalie's been jailed for. Was Natalie jailed for 2 months? 7 months. Okay, so they're giving me the high five. So 7 months she's been jailed for. And this is for just breaching quarantine, nothing else. Right. On top of that, she's got massive fines. And then the dental regulatory body, I'm not sure which one, there's a few of them, has actually removed her license to become a dentist on top of that. So not only has they jailed her, the trauma going through all that, you got to remember, this is a child bride that they're attacking here.
That's right.
And now they've destroyed
her
her
they're not
dream.
criminals. They're not people that have committed a crime. They're innocent civilians. And I think they're doing it to make an example of people to prevent others from actually standing up for their rights, their human rights.
Fear is the most powerful emotion, right? You scare people into submission. Simple.
Yeah. That's it. So, and the worst bit about it is I've heard it reported that when they were going through the prosecution process, the prosecutors were... I don't want to say quoted because I don't know if this is a direct quote or not. They were saying that if she gets a minor sentence, they'll go through it and charge her with something else to make sure she gets a bigger sentence. They wanted her to go to jail even before she had a chance to defend herself in the jail.
They'll just stack the.
As far as I'm concerned, she's the second Australian political prisoner.
Very sad.
She is purely in jail to prove a point, and it's disgusting. And now the worst bit about it is, we were trying to get everyone's favourite Liberal leader, Zach, into the show. Yeah, he's not here. I'm checking with Dwayne because he's the one that's been dealing with it. Did they ever get in contact with you again, or did they just snob you off? Hang on, he's sending me a message. Yeah. It's the old things, talking. Okay, they didn't call us back. So we've been in communication with these guys for nearly a week to come on.
And I would think he'd want to jump to this, and I'll tell you why. Look, the Liberal Party in this state is MIA.
That's mindless.
Absolutely. And look, Lisa Harvey, who was the leader before, funny enough, I was looking through some of my notes and so forth today, and I've came across one of the conversations I had with her a couple of years ago. I am, conservative values need to be supported. Yeah. But I believe in both sides of politics. I genuinely do. And we try very, very hard to get people in from the left side, as it was said before. But when we can't get the Conservative side in, who are the people who are being shut up by the Seven media?
I hear this from a lot of people as well. It's becoming harder and harder to distinguish between the two major parties, Liberal and Labor.
Plus Greens, the same. They don't want scrutiny of their policies.
So the Greens,
they're socialists.
That's why the slave masters of Labor. Like the Labor just bend over backwards and do whatever the Greens tell them to do. So when you vote for Labor, you're just voting for Greens master. Yeah. So
I think at this point the public's voice has been removed by all three parties, and that's the issue we need to be dealing with.
Now the thing is, so I do slag out the Greens and Labor and Liberals quite a lot. Now, I have asked every single one of those parties to come onto the show. Mark McGowan has declined. Labor Party declined. Dr. Booty, who's the member of Armidale. I live in the electorate of Armidale. He's declined. Like every single time I contact Labor, sitting Liberal members or the Greens, they just ignore us. They don't give us oxygen.
The decisions on the COVID-19 are not being made on evidence, evidence that can be scrutinised, and that's why they're not coming on and debating these issues.
Yeah. Maybe they're scared of me. Like, this big scary cripple. Like
very unattractive man. Perhaps that's why.
Possibly. Maybe they're just jealous of my manly beard that I can grow overnight. So, anyway, so on that wrap up, we are now 14 minutes late for the next lot of messages. So we're going to go have a bit of a message from the message people.
Yes.
Wow, this is such great, riveting radio. And then we're going to go into another song. So we'll be back in a tick on Carter's Corner. Travis Carter, Dr. Judy Wilyman. I was about to say Cam Tinley, but Tyler Walsh. Sorry, Cam's been in the studio
musical
all day.
Chairs around
and
used to him.
Aaron. You messed up, Aaron. Carter's Corner with Travis Carter, Aaron Malloy, Tyler Walsh, the fill-in for Cam. We got Dr. Judy, and now on the phone, all the way from sunny Victoria, not really, she's down in Dunsborough on a holiday, we actually have Julie. You're there with us, Julie.
I am.
Fantastic. So now, Julie, you've also got another guest in your room there with you as well, which is Louise.
Yeah, look, I'm here. Louise is here. I did the 14-day ISO. Judy did the longest stint.
Okay,
Hotel.
fantastic. So we've got a lot of people in the studio, so I do apologise if it gets a bit confusing. If you do need to ask more questions to clarify things, feel free to send text messages in on 0418 897 897. So the reason we got these two young ladies into the studio today, especially with Louise, she's from Victoria. She had the joys of having a police visit her at her house and
Always
issue her
nice.
some fines.
Tell us about it.
I've been protesting in Victoria against the lockdown. And the reason for my protesting is I'm a social worker and I can see the impact this is having on vulnerable families and children. That is why. So, yes, I was issued a $1,452 fine for attempting to have a freedom of speech.
How
and
dare you?
protesting.
Jeez. Imagine wanting freedom
yeah.
of speech.
I'm sorry about my language here, but Victorian Police, you guys are wankers. Like, that's just stupid. Like, for you, because you spoke out, they decided to fine you $1,400.
Travis, they're just following orders, okay? You know, the swastika on their shoulder has got nothing to do with it.
I thought I'd get in trouble, but you're just taking the cake
I'll
now,
take
Aaron. So that's just disgusting. $1,400, that's more than what most people earn in a fortnight.
Absolutely. And fortunately, there's a lot of fantastic forums out there and a lot of legal-minded people supporting those Victorians who have been faced with these fines. So we're getting pretty good, because this isn't the first fine we've received. My husband's received a couple. We're getting pretty good at writing an affidavit and submitting those to court.
So that's blown me away. So I shouldn't be. One of my friends, and he was actually the best man at my wedding, is Victor Tay from Exercise Your Rights. He's racking up about $3,000 worth of fines at the moment in New South Wales. We're constantly hearing stories about these people. Now, when the police actually rocked up to your house, did they politely knock on the door, or did they do like the lady who was pregnant and they handcuffed behind her back, and would they like totally smash down the door and come and give you a little envelope?
So they politely knocked on the door.
Oh, finally, some manners from the Victorian
I asked
Police.
them to step off my property, and I was prepared to have a conversation with them through the flywire, which they did eventually oblige. Look, I have to say they were young. They were polite, and their reason for being there was they had reason to believe that I would be attending a protest the following day, and they were there to advise me not to, but were unable to provide me with information on why they were advising me.
So the police now are not about enforcing the law; they're an advice service. That's nice. So, dear Danny, Officer Dear Danny, can you give me advice on what I need to do with my love life now? They're there to advise you the day before. That's just what's wrong with the world, honestly.
I have to ask, did they fine you before the event actually happened, or did they rock up say you shouldn't go to this, and then they fined you after you did the protest?
No. I'd already received a fine, and because I'd received a fine from a previous protest, they had my information on their system, hence why they rocked up at my door to advise not to attend.
Wow. So... Wow, I'm dumbfounded. Like, I knew it was bad. I've seen the videos. Topher Field's been telling us a little bit about what's going on, but you're the first person I've actually spoken to who's actually been a part of it. When you actually go to do these protests, I have to ask, how scared are you that you're going to get arrested and massively hurt by the police whilst you're actually attending one of these rallies?
Absolutely, which is why I was triggered at the Perth rally, because I saw police and I didn't realise how that much had triggered me. So as soon as you step off the train station in Melbourne, whether it's Parliament or Flinders Street or wherever that protest is, there are hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of police. And immediately, because I'm a non-mask wearer, I refuse to comply with wearing a muzzle. And so I'm an instant target. And I get stopped constantly and have to show ID. medical exemption certificates for not wearing a mask, which actually isn't a direction from DHHS, but it doesn't matter how many times you tell the police that, they still insist on seeing it. They're brutal.
They pull you over and they say they'd like to see your papers.
Wow, that sounds...
Think about it.
A little bit 1945. The bit I find amazing in all of this, so obviously the rally that Louise was talking about, I am kind of guilty of this one. I was actually one of the speakers at the rally on the weekend, and I am so proud of Perth. And I have to say, I'm kind of proud of the Perth police on this one as well.
Good.
They were awesome. So they sat around, they watched, they listened. I actually had a few questions for them. They were really, really cool. I still can't understand how the Victorian police and the people that are in charge, like the commissioners and the police, the police minister and all that, how they are getting away with what they're doing. It's disgusting. So the other thing that I heard you say earlier, and when you introduced yourself, you work in social services.
So I'm a social worker for a not-for-profit organisation. Yeah.
Now, my biggest question at the moment is I'm also involved with a group that assists men, especially making sure they get access to the children and making sure the family's doing the right thing about their children. And we got to deal with suicide nearly on a daily basis with this group. So big shout out to the guys and ladies from FACRA. You're doing an absolute stellar job. Now, my question is, as a social worker, have you seen an increase on the so-called reported calls for help, the suicide rates within the COVID shutdowns, and what's actually going on not only in Victoria, but also, if you can, across Australia?
Absolutely. I've been social working for over 20 years in a few countries, and I've social worked in WA as well as Victoria. I've never seen anything like it.
Okay.
The call volume for crisis calls, I answer frontline crisis calls, has increased, and we just cannot keep up with the demand. The services have been shut down for months, so vulnerable families haven't been able to access services, and we rely on schools, kinders, daycares to have eyes and ears on the vulnerable families. And of course, they've been locked away with perpetrators of abuse for 6 months with no means of making any disclosures. Without disclosures, we can't intervene.
Wow.
It's been hideous.
Yeah, so there's a few other groups I do have to give a shout out this, and I'm probably not getting in trouble for this one, but I don't really care. There's all these, and a lot of these groups are set up by people who've gone through similar situations like this, and they're just trying to help out. So another one that's been really, really massive in trying to help with prevention of suicide in WA is a group called Dads for Life. These guys are putting in massive amounts of work to try and prevent the suicide, what the government's causing. And to be honest with you, I personally feel that all this suicide during the COVID lockdown is 100% government caused, and the government, there has to be a reckoning on it.
I wouldn't give the absolute. I wouldn't say it's 100%, but I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, my opinion.
Yes, exactly. It's your opinion. But I do think that the government have the knee-jerk reactions, and particularly when you're talking about Victoria, and when we look at WA for that matter. I mean, over there we've got old dictator Dan doing his thing, right? Over here we've got Nat McCowd, who is just putting everything together so that he can make sure that he wins that next election, because hey, he's the great protector. He saved us from that evil flu, the China virus. It's absolutely ridiculous. This is not about public health. This is about public control. This is about politics. This is about power.
You need to look up the Great Barrington Declaration, because that is over 60,000 scientists and doctors and hundreds and thousands of civilians who have signed the declaration of the overwhelming mental health problems and anxieties and domestic violence, suicides that these lockdowns have caused.
On that front, thank you so much. Look, I'm lousy IT-wise, okay, really am. So is there a possibility we can get that link to a YouTube page maybe, mate? Can we do that?
Talking of links, so the first one is FACRA, FARCA, YouTube, Facebook. I think they have. Do they have a Twitter account?
No, don't think they have a Twitter account.
Okay, so Facebook and YouTube.
So FACRA.
Yeah,
Family Children's Rights Australia.
Yep. So that's FACRA. Dads for Life again is a Facebook one. So Dads #4 Life. Now, Louise, with your one, are you your social work? Are you allowed to promote them on the radio as well?
I wouldn't like to without getting that permission from.
my mother-in-law works for a red shielded company. So, yeah, I understand there's a few places that you're not allowed to openly advertise without getting into trouble.
Louise, are you in touch with Serene Tefahar and getting some
Absolutely.
legal? Excellent.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do follow Serene, and she's been brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. So people who have been copping fines and things like that, like Victor, like Louise here, if you do need help on this one, another one I have to throw out there, fight the fines or fight your fines through Rebel Media. Make sure you go hit them up as well. Avi Yemen's been absolutely instrumental over here. They're doing some massive work. So, because as far as I'm concerned, the Victorian government is I don't want to say have an absolute here, but they are behaving like they are hardcore mafia bosses and criminals, and there has to be a reckoning. And unfortunately, the Governor-General in Australia is sitting on his hands and twiddling his thumb out at the same time and not doing anything. So.
All right, look, I'm going to jump subjects a little bit. Same subject, but something that, I don't know a lot about. So I want to ask, both of our caller and Judy as well. The tests, all right, now they seem to be very obtrusive. Sorry, it was Julie on the phone, was it? Julie, can you tell us?
Julie, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us about the test? Can you tell us talk me through it physically?
Shouldn't we give Julie's background first?
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, because I think that's really, really important there so people understand. Now, Julie, have you had COVID?
I have had COVID, yes. I've been there, done that.
Person.
No, she's not. Everyone's had the flu.
I'm being a bit
Get
sarcastic,
over it.
just a tad.
Be nice to her, Aaron. Be nice.
Be nice to me. Yeah.
I am. No, I'm loving this.
I'm picking up an accent there, Julie. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Western Australia, but I've been living in the UK for the last 6 years.
Okay, fantastic. So you were telling me before that you had the joys of going through the international, was it quarantine or just isolation?
Quarantine.
Okay,
Prison,
so
I call it.
yeah, definitely is a prison. How long were you stuck in quarantine for?
I was in my hotel room for 32 days before I was allowed out.
Yeah, no. That's not a lie there, guys. That's 32 days stuck in a hotel room. Were you ever allowed outside for some fresh air?
No.
Were you allowed to do any exercise besides jumping up and down on the spot?
No.
Was the room service any good?
The room service, I can't fault. The staff were fabulous. None of them wanted to be wanted to be in the situation,
Just
so
trying
they
to
were
find-
very supportive.
Just trying to find a silver lining.
The what do you call them? The security guards. I mean, you hear all sorts of stories, but they were all fantastic.
Yep.
And it was really interesting when I came out. Everyone knew me because I'd been there for so long.
like the movie The Terminal, right?
32
But the
days.
funniest thing was, I had 1 week where I was the only person on my floor. I still had a security guard assigned to the end of the corridor. I was still not allowed to walk up and down the corridor.
You criminal. Oh, shocking.
Yeah, and no fresh air. It was just hideous.
Well,
and it was horrible.
tell me about the test then. Please tell me about the test.
The test. Okay, well, I had basically, can I just say that it really depends on the person administering the test, and I had 4 of them.
Okay.
Two,
4 tests.
Yeah.
You got
yeah.
nasally raped 4 times? Sorry, for those that don't
Yeah,
know,
but
I'll
I
let
learned
Julie
very
explain.
quickly. I learned very quickly a tip for anyone that has one. The one of the ladies told me, and it wasn't till my 3rd test, that you breathe out. Hang on, no, you breathe out as you're having it, because the natural reaction is to breathe in and you just about knock someone over because you're gagging and
Oh, wow.
involuntary. So breathe in and and then I got told on my sort of final one that they don't have to go right back into to make you gag and vomit. So I learned a lot from my 4. So my tips are to breathe out as you do the nose one. And
The thing is,
and it
okay,
really
you
depends
know
on
what?
the person doing it.
You're talking about it and we're having a laugh and all that sort of carry on. But
you
we're
have
actually
to.
talking about, we're trying to make it sound like, well, quite frankly, just diminish the
It is horrid.
It's
It
a
is really
horrible
horrid.
experience, as I understand. Yeah.
Is it nurses that are doing the tests, or who's doing the
It
tests?
depends where you go. I had because I was in a prison situation. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. The quarantine situation. We had the pathology lab come directly to us.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I gather, most of the COVID centres here are hospital based, and so it is
I know there's-
hospital staff that
I
do
know
it.
there's one outside Bunnings near my place, but it's never manned. No one's over there. They just avoid it like the plague. Now, I have had...
Thanks, staff. Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, so
Get
get your
free
sausage sizzle on your COVID swab. Why not? So we have had a question here. can you please ask Dr. Judy to explain the technical reason why they have to do the nasal swab?
That's actually not my area of expertise, is
Okay.
how they do it.
So like, the question is, why do they do the nose and the mouth, like the throat? Because isn't it all connected?
Yeah, I'm not a medical
Okay.
and biomedical researcher, so that's not really
your
my
area?
expertise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can hit up the good old Dr. Miller. What is it, Dr. Andrew Miller?
Yes.
He
Yeah.
went, come on.
Good
He's
luck
already
with
he already chickened out once. So he did, just for the listeners who are wondering why we keep bagging out Dr. Andrew Miller, when they first started talking about the mask and saying that everyone should, when they open up the borders, everyone should be wearing masks and we should be emulating the Asian countries. He said, yeah, I'll call into the show, rah, rah, rah. And then he bailed on us with about 2 hours before the show.
I will make the point, though, that the PCR test is not accurate in what it's identifying, and the false positives, even in that case, is up to 50%. The cases have been wildly exaggerated, and a case is somebody without symptoms that has just tested positive to this test, which is possibly a false positive. So there's many problems with the test.
Yep. I have read an article. I won't say where it's from because I can't remember. They were saying that because of the way that the test's done, they just look for parts of the COVID
That's
virus.
right. They can only identify segments of it,
Yeah,
not
correct.
the whole virus.
So, but the thing is, the COVID virus isn't a new virus. It's been around for a very long time. So SARS was apparently a COVID virus. So
we've got to distinguish here, Travis, because COVID is actually the disease. So that's the flu-like symptoms.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about coronavirus 2019. That's the new virus, and it has two names: coronavirus 2019 or SARS-CoV-2. Okay, so the test is used to supposedly identify the virus, right? But it's not accurately identifying the virus, and with all those false positives, it's actually proven to be meaningless. And because they're doing it in healthy people without symptoms, and you're getting all these false positives, the cases have been way exaggerated. So it's fraudulent statistics that are being used there.
Awesome. God, I'm so stoked we had Dr. Judy come in today because
Fantastic.
the wealth of knowledge in this young lady is phenomenal.
You always do that. You're tell you what.
A compliment never hurt no one. So
he's quite the Casanova. This one.
I wonder how many less wars there would be instead of going in, give us all your money. I'm putting a tariff on Switzerland or whatever. If we just, you know what, Switzerland, you're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Can I have a discount?
Cool. Yeah. Let's go out for beers.
Yeah.
And some chocolate. Yeah.
So anyway, guys, if you do have questions and I'm riveted about the process of the quarantine and what's actually happening, and tested 4 times.
But I'm still like, okay, how far back in our nose are we going, in our throat are we going? I hear gagging. I don't want this. Okay.
Well, actually, I did have a COVID test myself.
I'd love to hear, mate. Love to hear.
Because my wife had one yesterday.
Yeah.
How long did your nose run with just like constant liquid that you can't stop? Because it's been, I think, 2 days since Luan had hers, and it's just constant, just crap.
Term. Yeah, lovely.
Well, I don't know. It's the cleared snot.
Yeah.
Fortunately enough, I haven't actually experienced that, but this was back in July. I had one. I do remember like the long swab going up the nose all the way down and then straight out, but I mean, it was uncomfortable, but it was over pretty.
And Tyler, what was the reason you had it?
So in July, I did have I guess, symptoms that related to COVID-19. And because I live with my family, I guess they were concerned that I might have been carrying the virus because one of my sisters at the time was on immune suppressants. So I guess, they wanted me to get tested. And then I did. And then the next day I got the results saying it was negative. So happy days. Guys,
I have to quickly jump in there because I have not been watching the clock at all. We do need to do a few messages. So Louise and Julie, I'd love you guys to stick around for a song or two. I want to talk more because I'm finding this amazing.
Please don't go.
So please don't go. No. So we're going to go to our messages and we're going to have a song and then we'll be right back in a little bit, okay?
Fantastic.
Awesome. We'll be right back. Carter's Corner back again. Hang on, forgot to turn the microphone on for the telephone. So Travis Carter, Aaron Malloy, Tyler Walsh, North Metro candidate for One Nation in the upcoming WA state election. Wow, what a tongue twister. And she's been here all day. Absolutely hilarious. Loving having her in. Dr. Judy.
No.
Hit me now.
Judge Judy now. Let's just do it. Judge him.
No,
Judge him.
That'll do.
My defense is we've got Julie on the phone line and Louise.
Yes. It's getting confusing.
Louise is from Victoria.
Yep.
Currently in Dunsborough. went to a protest on the weekend, scared of the police because she got arrested over in Victoria. And Julie...
Do we need some sort of pie chart or flow sort of diagram for you, my friend?
Yes, because tired, limited mental capacity. Really awesome protest on the weekend, by the way. And Dr. Judy was there as well. Awesome speech. I loved every minute of it.
Thank you.
So we really need to make sure we keep getting these people there, because there was close to 500 people there on this weekend, which
Brilliant.
was really, really good turnout. Also, Dr. Augusto Zimmerman was doing a speech there as well. Cam did a speech. Like the speakers on the event were phenomenal. And we also had... It's kind of funny. We invited a lot of... I assisted a little bit in the organising, and I know the group that did organise it invited a lot of politicians to come down. Mm-hmm. You know, the only party that was willing to come down and actually talk to the people...
Who's that?
Besides, obviously, CAM, no mandatory vaccination party. We had Phil Scott, the South Metro candidate for One Nation, come to the event as well and did a speech as well. So it seems like I'm very, very disappointed, and I was hoping Zach would fix this. I was really, really hoping that Zach would... bring a bit of backbone back to the Liberal Party. And again, I'm going to stand by my comments here. I think Zach he might be a fill-in leader for the Liberal Party until they get through the election. I hope he's not. I really, really do.
Well, if that's the case, they're considering him to be a sacrificial lamb. Simple as that. They know that they can't.
And
win
I think
this
that's the wrong thing to do to Zach.
Of course it is.
That's terrible. So
absolutely wrong thing to do.
Zach, I hope you're listening, mate. I really want you in the show so you can put your foot forward. You can show, no, we are not spineless. We are not timid. We are not the offshoot of the Labor Party or the Greens. And actually come and tell us what we actually want to hear from Liberal Party, not ex-Liberals or candidates. We want to actually hear from the Liberal Party. Now, on that as well, Mark McGowan, come on, mate. Man up. Come on to the show.
Can I tell you a little side thing about old Mark McGowan and why I call him Nuck McCoward?
Because he's a coward.
Because he is a complete coward. It's just true.
And he sells us out to China.
Yes,
he
he
keeps
does.
dobbing on us to China.
Do you know what? Okay, when you go on social media and so forth, you've got, you're members of all these groups and all kind of carry on. Okay, no problem. Now, I'm a member of Each Way Elbows, right, page. Now, I don't believe in any of his politics. I find him absolutely ridiculous. But I will give him this. He flips on everything. He seems to be owned by, the Greens and the lobbyists, all of that. But I will give him full credit. He leaves me on that page. I make my comments. I get responses. And I'm part of the conversation. Narc McCoward, on the other hand, I made one comment once and he just simply blocked me. And that's not a leader, because a leader should not be worried about somebody actually having a different opinion. They should step up and say, hey, I respect your opinion, I don't agree with it, and here's my take on it. He is a coward. He hides behind it. He's been hiding behind the Chinese virus. He's been using it to buy himself votes because he's been creating terror, creating fear, and therefore, oh, look, he's just a wonderful man who's protected us. No, he is an absolute coward who is hidden behind it to control you.
Talking of cowardly premiers, we do have, hopefully we've still got Julie on the line. Yes,
Yep.
yes. Oh, we still got them. And we still got Louise.
I'm here.
Fantastic. So, as a Victorian, when was the last time you were allowed in Victoria?
Sorry, repeat that?
So, you're currently in WA. You're saying that you were heading back home. I won't say when, just in case the police are waiting for you at the airport to give you another fine. When was the last time you were back in Victoria?
So I left Victoria on the 19th of November to fit in 2 weeks quarantine, house arrest, so I can be released in time for my daughter's graduation, who studies in WA. That was my purpose of coming. So it cost me $2,000, pay for accommodation to quarantine in, plus 6 hours of form filling to get all my paperwork together to be able to have the correct papers to enter. And it's been pretty tough journey, really, and plus nearly a year of not seeing my loved one.
I wasn't planning to bring this up in this show, but there's a little section in our State Emergency Act called Section 78. It actually reads something along the lines of, anyone who suffers loss or damages because of the state of emergency is entitled to fair and reasonable compensation. I think it's really, really time that we start ramping this up, because the amount of stories that I'm hearing coming to these protests, talking to people, I get so many messages and so many, because my phone number is not private. It's a public phone number. It's listed on my Facebook. It's on my website, so traviscarter.com.au. My phone number's on there. I've got a YouTube channel. Just look Travis Carter on YouTube, me and my daughter on the thumbprint. It's pretty much everywhere. So if you guys please like that subscribe button, hit the notification bell.
Yeah. It's actually good value. I subscribe myself.
So actually, you are a subscriber.
I am.
I think, Tyler, you're a subscriber too.
Yes, I've subscribed to it. Yeah.
We'll have to get Dr. Judy to become a subscriber. She's shaking her head at me. No. So the amount of people who call me up saying, help, what's going on? How do I do this? How do I do that? I get swamped with phone calls. If I go a day without, say, 40, 50 phone calls, it's a good day. So I think we really need to start putting the pressure on the WA government. And because what they're doing is, it's for your own safety, but it's costing people tens of thousands of dollars. And most Australians can't afford that. We're not the Clive Palmers who can afford to spend $60 million on an election. We're not Tom Hanks, who's a movie star. We're not football players who can afford to have prostitutes in our rooms and breaking quarantine laws.
Well, plus, all the normal ways of controlling infectious diseases were suddenly reversed.
Yeah.
So that now you isolate healthy people. I mean, that's just... And that was not based on any real data. They used mathematical modelling with false assumptions to way exaggerate the predicted deaths and call it a pandemic.
That modelling has been completely disproved.
It's been completely disproved.
Absolute rubbish.
And so the only way to get real data is to, when a person gets sick, you isolate the sick people, and then from that you work out how serious the virus is, and then you take draconian steps after that. You don't start with locking down the entire population.
Dr. Judy made a very good point there. You lock up the sick. You know, a country
isolate
isolate the sick. You know, a country that never gets mentioned in the news, who I think has hands down done the best job. And I'm not talking Taiwan. I'm not talking Japan. I'm not talking Sweden. Who's the neighbour to the west of China? Vietnam. They have a population of 96 million people in the size of half of New South Wales. They have an open border with China where the trucks go backwards and forwards non-stop. They've got bus loads of people going to China for shopping trips, and then you fall asleep on the bus, then you come back home. I've actually done it. It's really, really cool. So these guys have massive amount of population going backwards and forwards. I had reported that one of the biggest contributions for spreading of viruses and diseases is how densely packed the population is. That's why social distancing is so important to fighting pandemics and outbreaks. So why did they only get 270 cases and 0 deaths? Name another country that did as well as them.
And they isolated the sick, right?
The moment someone was sick, they isolated the person that was sick, and then they tested the immediate family, and they were put in isolation until
Never
those tests
in
came
history have they locked down healthy populations to control a disease. And since 1950, you're not expecting pandemics in developed countries because we know that environmental factors and host factors make a difference, and they've all been improved in these countries, so that 99.9% of people that get a virus will not get seriously sick from it, and it's usually asymptomatic and mild cases.
That's right.
And and the World Health Organization actually came down in October and said they do not condone lockdowns as a measure for these diseases. So they're on record.
Can we actually trust the World Health Organization, considering I think it was the 6th of January where they were saying that human-to-human transmissions were not likely?
That's it, Travis. They were the ones that caused and called the lockdowns in the first place. And let me say
as far as I'm concerned, they cooked the books.
They did cook the books, but they're advised by what we call the Gavi Alliance, which is your private-public partnerships, including the pharmaceutical companies. They advise the World Health Organization now.
One of the things that I want to do, because we do have these 2 very awesome guests on the phone.
We do.
And especially... I want to learn more about this international travel side of things and some of the horror stories in it. But what we do need to do, because we're way behind on the time things here, so we do need to get the hourly messages up, which is only like 11 minutes late.
We're doing all right. We're doing all right.
Go to another lot of messages and another. I'm thinking we might skip the song to try and catch up some time, but we will be back shortly. So Carter's Corner, 89.7 FM. If you do want to get some questions through, please make sure you send a text through on 0418 897 897. And to all the messages that have come through already, we are reading them. We're trying to get through them, but we're getting slammed with messages, and we're trying to get as many of these questions answered as possible. So keep sending them in. They are absolutely awesome questions and very, very relevant. So Carter's Corner, we'll be back shortly. All right, you're back with Carter's Corner, Travis Carter, Aaron, Tyler Walsh, and Dr. Judy. I got to write this time. And we also have Julie on the phone and Louise from Victoria also on the phone. So I want to ask how... I'm trying to think of a polite way to ask this. Whilst both of you were going through your different quarantine process and your transit from one place to another, so from Victoria and from the UK, how the staff that were doing it, did you find them extremely intrusive, or were the staff half all right?
So for me, flying in from Victoria, process was you're greeted from the flight by the army as well as the police.
So the army.
Yeah, so the armed forces were there. Bearing in mind there is no social distancing at all on the flight, and there's none whilst lining up to be processed. I'm using the word processed because that's what happened to us. You get your temperature testing done when you land. You get your mask checked. If it's an incorrect mask, if it's a cloth mask, it's a mask. You're then sent through to a booth where the police check your paperwork again to make sure it's adequate, and you are allowed to enter WA. From that point on, you're free to enter the main airport, collect your luggage, join an Uber queue, and go on your merry way to your accommodation, which makes the whole thing a bit daft, really, of the whole system in place.
Do you know why they were using the military in WA?
No idea. I didn't know they were going to be there.
Oh, look, there's a policeman there. There's someone from the army. I mean, can we get the whole village people involved? I mean, really?
Okay, we just had a message come through. The military were used to scare us into compliance. Oof. That's a pretty harsh, but yeah, no, it's by the sounds of it, it's genuine. Now, Julie, coming from the UK, was it a similar process?
It was slightly different because coming into the international airport, it was federal police lining the corridors until we got through, and then the state police dealt with our paperwork.
Yep.
With the full, I call it the gas mask.
Yep. Well, it pretty
so
much
they
is.
had the mask that had the two bits on the side, and and then when we came out, I think the coming out of the airport was the most overwhelming because you come out a side door, none of the normal airport exit, and there's just police flashing lights absolutely everywhere, and it's dark, and you're just it's just really, firstly, overwhelming, and the lights just give you an instant headache after being all that time with no fresh air.
Sounds like interrogation, to be honest with you.
And then you sort of led, well, there's a police, very big police presence in terms of people and cars. And then you're put onto the Green Perth buses and transported. And the bus journey was actually, you don't know whether to think you're heroes or prisoners because you have a police escort, police cars in front, behind, beside you. Any entrances onto the roads were blocked by police cars with lights flashing. Traffic lights were all stopped. Police cars stopping all the traffic. We just went straight through. Didn't stop till we got to the hotel.
Look, tell you right now. Well, I was in Perth on the weekend during nighttime hours, and I actually saw these buses coming into a particular hotel. And what they've done there is, they've got all the lights. They had the army, they had the police, but they had all the coloured lights going on. And to me, it looked like a terror attack. It
does. It feels like it.
Yeah.
So terror attack.
I consider
it's all to keep the fear up because the media's driving the fear, and then they just need something in the community to show fear as well, and that's what it's all about.
I wonder how
I
wonder how the place.
And I've been living it. I'd been living it in the UK, so that was the fascinating thing for me.
Yeah.
I've been living and breathing it, and come here where there, isn't really much of it other than business.
Now,
the safest place on earth at the moment, but that's okay.
Yeah. You did say something funny. You said you've been living and breathing it in the UK. So obviously we're talking to Julie now. So Julie's the one that had COVID. We haven't asked the most important question today. How bad was it?
How bad? Well, for me, I firmly believe that underlying lifestyle factors make a big difference. For me personally, it wasn't like the flu at all.
Yep.
But I certainly did suffer, and I'm still. For me, it's been the long-term effects rather than when at the time of the virus, where it was active in my body. Fatigue is the main thing. And my temperature was low and still is, so I'm really feeling the cold.
Do you think the fatigue might be something related to your mental health? I mean, going through a traumatic thing like this, do you think that maybe the trauma has affected you?
I try not to dwell on that one.
Okay. I don't blame you.
I try to be as positive as possible, and my background is in public health, and so I have tried to look at, at beyond the scaremongering, and certainly had to do all of that when I was in quarantine. I just had to shut out the real world. And wouldn't listen to a news bulletin, any of those sorts of things.
That was a smart move.
Yeah. And opted for, for positive health outcomes sorts of initiatives. So
Okay, so
and that's what got me through.
Okay, so the other thing we forgot to do is because Julie's daughter is graduating in a couple of weeks. So first of all, Louise's daughter, sorry. So Louise's daughter, if you're listening, congratulations on graduating. Well done. Woohoo! You're an adult now. No. So I've got some more messages coming through here saying you were tired of being locked up. Tell us about the hotel security guards. So we've still got more messages coming through. So make sure you send them through 0418 897 897. Now, earlier you were saying that the security guards were pretty cool. Do you know what company they were?
No, I don't.
Okay, so
No.
were they...
But I did speak to a number of them, and some of them were ones that were, they were basically going between different. Some of them were doing different hotels because from what I gather, they were using different hotels at different periods of time.
Yep.
And at that time, it was when the state was pretty much shut down, and I was in at the time when the intrastate borders came down. So, I hadn't seen what the norm was in Australia, so I was only hearing about everything being closed down because when I came out, shops were opened again and things like that. So these security guards were really respectful of the fact that they actually had work. And I didn't see any examples of things not being done well.
Okay. When you were actually stuck in the hotel for both of you guys, did you see many medical staff actually at the hotel? Did you get many visits to make sure you were breathing okay?
You don't get visits. Everything is done by phone. So that's what's so isolating. You have to come to terms with the fact that everything is by phone. And I had visits for checks and things, but the daily assessments and all of that sort of thing is all by phone.
Okay. So another question that's just come through is, I wonder why private guards worked fine in WA when they didn't work in Victoria. So I actually watched a really interesting, it came up on YouTube, and I thought, you know what, let's dive down the rabbit hole of 60 Minutes. And they actually did a pretty good article on it. Sorry, not 60 Minutes, Sky News.
Can I just... Oh, sorry. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, what was her name? Peter Crellin. She did it. It was about the failures of the hotel quarantine system. And it was actually a really, really, really good article because they broke it down not only just where they failed, but also where they could have improved. So that was good. So I think also... Victoria refused the help of the military to coordinate everything, where they tried to do it all themselves, where WA and the other states accepted the help of the military to coordinate what was going on between all the security guards and police.
And as someone who trashes the police fairly regularly, I actually want to put my hand up and say good on them, and our army guys as well, guys and girls there who have done an amazing job. They have, it's been a trying situation, and they needed to, step into these roles that they're not comfortable roles for them. So, it's like, what was going on with the military, the investigations going on at the moment. You can't really tarnish everybody with, with one, when you've got a few bad eggs out there, simple as that.
In terms of Victoria Police, they were all bad eggs. They were brutal.
Right. Are we talking the full rotten eggs? We're talking that you can't make curried egg out of this puppy. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, come on. They went through a market stall in riot gear for, I think it was like 120 people.
I used to like Victoria.
I've never liked it.
I
It's
used to
always
really
been
like
shit
Victoria. And then the last time I went, I thought, this is a different place. Like, when did you just change the name on the door? What's going on?
It was interesting because I saw the Attorney General, Gillian Hennessy, being interviewed on that aspect because there was a press conference asking her why Victorians no longer had any human rights. And she said, you have got human rights, you just have to exercise them. But when they exercised them, they all ended up in court.
Oh, Wow.
So quite bizarre.
Talk about foot and mouth disease.
Hey, buddy, can I encourage us to have a little break if that's possible?
Of course.
Cool.
I did see you queued it all up, and I saw that you also put our disclaimer in that we were supposed to play multiple times, which I totally forgot to do.
Well, you haven't forgotten it. It was played. It has been played before.
Yeah, it played right out the start.
Good
so, yeah.
boy.
Anyway, so what we're going to do, we're going to hit a quick little message from our sponsors. Nearly said the bad A word. We're going to hit a song. So, guys, I have to say thank you very, very much for coming onto the show. You guys have been very, very brilliant. So, Julie and Louise, all the way from Dunsborough at the moment, but they're from Victoria and the UK. Absolutely phenomenal. So, this is Carter's Corner, 89.7. We will be back after this short little message.